everybody. Good morning. Newly released Hillary Clinton emails once again showing the top donors to the Clinton Foundation were possibly seeking special favors from the State Department when Clinton was at the helm. As we say good morning, breaking news on this, I'm Bill Hemmer, live here inside of America's Newsroom. It is Wednesday. How you doing?
Good to be
You're
here.
Still standing.
I am still here. I'm happy to be here. Happy Wednesday to all of you. I'm Abby Huntsman in for Martha McCallum. And this is where we begin the story that just won't die. 44 new emails released to the public as part of a conservative group's lawsuit against the State Department. Well, the messages show what the New York Times is now calling a, quote, close and sometimes overlapping interest between the Clinton Foundation and the State Department when Hillary Clinton served as Secretary of State. Listen.
There is absolutely no connection between anything that I did as Secretary of State and the Clinton Foundation. So people can say that, but I'm proud of our philanthropic work, our personal family philanthropic work, the work of the Clinton Foundation.
All right, so Rich Edson is live for us in Washington with the latest. Rich, what are these new emails revealing?
Well, good morning, Abby. And a longtime Clinton advisor who helped establish the Clinton Foundation asking those working then in the Clinton State Department to help foundation donors. In one email exchange, Doug Band asked top Clinton aides Huma Abedin and Cheryl Mills to set up a meeting between a Clinton Foundation donor and a State Department official. In another, Band relayed a request from someone on a Clinton Foundation trip to Haiti. That person was looking for a job at the State Department. He followed up, noting that person was, quote, important to take care of. Huma Abedin responded, "We have all had him on our radar. Personnel has been sending him options." These emails are the result of a Freedom of Information Act lawsuit. The conservative group Judicial Watch filed the suit, Abby.
Well, and the Clinton campaign has wanted this story to die a long time ago. Rich, what are they now saying?
Well, opponents are saying these emails are giving more evidence to those who claim the business of the Clinton State Department and the Clinton Foundation were unethically intertwined during Hillary Clinton's tenure as Secretary of State. Her campaign says that then Secretary of State Hillary Clinton is not involved in any of these email conversations. The campaign also claims the Clinton Foundation official and former official making these requests was acting as an aide to former President Bill Clinton. A campaign spokesperson tells Fox, quote, "Neither of these emails involve the secretary or relate to the foundation's work. They are communications between her aides and the president's personal aide, and indeed the recommendation was for one of the secretary's former staffers who was not employed by the foundation." Republicans call this unethical wheeling and dealing. Abby and Bill, back to you.
And the story goes on. Rich Edson live for us this morning. Rich, thank you.
We're going to get into more of this in a moment here. We'll talk with Larry Klayman, founder of Judicial Watch. That's the group which helped secure the release of a lot of these emails. He's also the attorney for one of the victims of the Benghazi attack, suing Hillary Clinton. More with him coming up in about 10 minutes on that.
But first, Bill, new comments this morning by WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange raising some eyebrows in an appearance on Dutch television. Assange spoke about his sources in the leak of DNC emails, but then brought up Seth Rich, a DNC staffer who was murdered in Washington just a few weeks ago, shot in the back while he was jogging. Listen to what Assange had to say.
Whistleblowers go to significant efforts to get us material and often very significant risks. As a 27-year-old works for the DNC, who was shot in the back, murdered just 2 weeks ago for unknown reasons as he was walking down the street in Washington. So
that was just a robbery, I believe, wasn't it?
No, there's no finding. So
what are you suggesting? What are you suggesting?
I'm suggesting that our sources take risks.
But was he one of your sources then? I mean,
we don't comment on who our sources are.
So police have made no arrest in the Rich case. According to officials, though, whoever killed Rich did not steal anything from him, leaving behind his wallet, his watch, and his phone.
Well, he's lingering a lot of things out there, right?
You know, I just have a feeling this won't end well. Bad story.
Technology has a way of evening the playing field on a lot of this stuff. So stay tuned. More on that if indeed it happens. In the meantime, critics of Donald Trump now, they are up in arms over a comment he made yesterday about Hillary Clinton. This all started at a rally when Trump talked about how Hillary Clinton, if given the opportunity as president to pick Supreme Court justices, could threaten the Second Amendment. Here is what Trump said. It lasts about 23 seconds in length in its entirety. Watch.
Hillary wants to essentially abolish the Second Amendment. By the way, and if she gets to pick If she gets to pick her judges, nothing you can do, folks. Although the Second Amendment people, maybe there is, I don't know. But I'll tell you what, that will be a horrible day.
So this thing caught on fire from both sides. You have the internet blowing up and many TV pundits saying that Trump was inciting violence. Some even going as far as using the word assassination. Trump responded with Sean Hannity saying that is simply, it begins with the letter B, according to Rudy Giuliani. And then he said, give me a break on Fox last night. Here's Byron York, political correspondent for the Washington Examiner and a Fox News contributor. How you doing, Byron? Good morning.
Good morning,
Good morning to you. All right, you heard it, and what did you think or interpret? You go ahead with your opinion first. Fire away.
Well, here we are again, another Trump controversy, opponents jumping on it, him defending it, and a lot of Clinton news receiving relatively less attention because of it. I think a reasonable listener could conclude that Trump, in some sort of offhanded way, was suggesting a gun rights supporter could shoot Hillary Clinton. And if you go back to yesterday afternoon and imagine something different, imagine Donald Trump saying, look, I misspoke. I didn't mean how it sounded. I meant that we should all unite to defeat Hillary Clinton. I think if he said something like that, it probably would have knocked the legs out from under a lot of the criticism.
Let me give you what he said first, Trump in his own words, Byron. Then there's more to talk about this next. Watch.
Nobody in that room thought anything other than what you just said. This is a political movement, and there can be no other term.
And he's often said,
He said he was with Trump and he was stunned by the reaction.
Yeah, there is this kind of bubble that you're in, and Trump says this from the stage. He comes off, people say great speech, and Giuliani and Trump were going to their next event. Trump doesn't know there's a controversy about it until some of his staff, they're looking at social media, they see what people are saying, and they realize that there was another way that people read this. Now, of course, a number of the people who got agitated about this were his critics and his opponents in the Democratic Party. That's just not a surprise. But as I said before, I think a reasonable person can conclude that he really misspoke here.
Back to your point about the polls. You started to say if you're winning, you brag about it, and you keep doing what you're doing. But if you're behind and you're losing, perhaps you change your style. I don't think that happens with Trump. Are you suggesting it will?
Well, I'm not suggesting that it will. But I'm suggesting that every candidate who has run for president and won has run a slightly different, somewhat different campaign in the general election than they ran in the primary contest, if they were contested primaries, as they certainly were with Trump. So Trump has been saying over and over and over again, look, what I did is working. I beat 16 other candidates. And that is true up until the moment he won the Republican nomination. After that, he only had one opponent, Hillary Clinton, a Democrat in a different political and media environment. And so far, he has not really altered his style to fit that new environment.
Speaking of media, he loves to bang on the media, and he's calling it dishonest now. And what Giuliani suggested is that the Clinton team has its dozen reporters, and they fire off an email, and they can start their own prairie fire, and that was a result of this. We will see what is said on it today. Clinton team calls it dangerous. Byron, thank you for your time.
There'll be a lot, Bill.
Washington, D.C. Oh, yeah. Now, what did Giuliani say? I think there are 50 more chapters in this election. By the way, Paul Ryan easily won his re-election in the first congressional district.
Not too surprising, though, there, right?
Probably not. There was a challenge there, and some folks went in that district trying to...
I think he's happy to have that one over with.
Likely.
Move on to the general. Well, a peaceful march quickly turns into chaos.
Oh, God! Oh, Jesus! Oh! Oh! Somebody's shooting!
You can see there a wild night. Gunshots ring out in Ferguson, Missouri after a protester gets hit by a car.
Also new questions and new fallout from the father of the Orlando terrorist killer. Sitting directly behind Hillary Clinton at its rally in Florida. Clinton was asked about it after the event. Watch here on screen.
Secretary Clinton, should your campaign have known that Omar Mateen's father was at your campaign rally yesterday?
Thanks, folks. Appreciate it.
Secretary Clinton, do you have time for a question?
How did she answer that? Her response.
Overnight. Listen. That is frightening stuff. Well, witnesses say the gunfire started after a car sped through demonstrators standing in the middle of the street, striking one of them. The young man hit by the car had to be taken to the hospital. Luckily, no one was hurt in that gunfire, but people were gathering to mark 2 years since the death of Michael Brown, the unarmed black teen who was shot and killed by a white police officer.
Secretary Clinton said there was nothing marked classified on her emails either sent or received. Was that true?
That's not true.
Secretary Clinton said I did not email any classified material to anyone on my email. There is no classified material. Was that true?
There was classified material emailed.
So that was from about a month ago, and those emails now back under the microscope. Conservative watchdog group Judicial Watch revealing 44 previously unreleased emails that appear to blur the line between the Clinton Foundation and the State Department while Hillary Clinton was in charge. Remember now, Clinton defending her own actions on Fox News Sunday 10 days ago, saying that she trusted the people around her to make the right decisions.
I relied on and had every reason to rely on the judgments of the professionals with whom I worked. And so in retrospect, maybe some people are saying, well, among those 300 people, they made the wrong call. At the time, there was no reason, in my view, to doubt the professionalism and the determination by the people who work every single day on behalf of our country.
With that as a backdrop, here is Larry Klayman, founder of Judicial Watch. He left the group 13 years ago, but he's also the attorney representing the family of Tyrone Woods, one of those killed in Benghazi in September 2012. Larry, good morning to you. I just want to make some very direct questions, okay? Did the Clinton Foundation, on behalf of Bill Clinton, use connections to the State Department under Hillary Clinton to gain favor? Yes or no?
Absolutely. I mean, this is a modus operandi of Mrs. Clinton and Bill Clinton. Back in the early 80s, in the late 90s, I uncovered at Judicial Watch that they were selling campaign contributions for access to the administration. This is nothing new. This has been a pattern of practice. And after I left Judicial Watch, I started Freedom Watch. You can find that at freedomwatchusa.org. And we have a RICO complaint up there, racketeering, about her pattern and practice of selling access to government in exchange for campaign contributions.
Larry, let me stop you. It's a strong charge. You sued the Clintons many times in the past. What is the proof? Give me a case where a favor was returned.
Well, we've seen it just in the emails that came out most recently, but we've been seeking documentation, and Peter Schweitzer was on earlier on Fox and Friends. He has documented the sale of access by the Clintons to the State Department for favors. That's called bribery. One of the things that we've been looking at Freedom Watch is the sale of waivers, that is to do business with Iran, who wants to wipe out Israel, the United States, as the great Satan, in exchange for contributions to the Clinton Foundation. We drew an Obama judge who hasn't forced the State Department to turn anything over, but Hillary Clinton was in charge of granting waivers to companies doing business with Iran, and Peter Schweitzer has actually put that in his book.
Larry,
so there's a lot out there.
Give us a down-the-line interpretation of this. If this is true, as you allege, what's the danger?
Well, the danger is that our government's for sale. The danger is that these individuals who have made large contributions to the Clinton Foundation own the Clintons. They will call in the favors if she's president of the United States, as they did in the 90s when the Chinese were involved with the Clintons. They helped finance their campaign for re-election. This is nothing new. And the Clintons are perhaps the most corrupt couple. I call them the Bonnie and Clyde of American politics, ever to have occupied the White House, and now they want to do it again. The United States is at great risk.
James Comey, FBI director, declined to answer when he was asked whether or not the Clinton Foundation was being investigated. Is it or not?
I don't know whether it is or not. You know, James Comey, I've worked with him on some cases. He's a nice man, but I believe that he didn't do what he had to do there because, frankly, if he had recommended prosecution against Mrs. Clinton, the Democrats would have blocked him from any future appointment. He is a political animal. His term at the FBI will end, and I believe that he basically was looking at his own interest and not the United States. I regret to say that, and I think people have lost confidence in the FBI.
Another strong statement. That's what you're saying about James Comey.
Correct.
Well, the Clinton team says this on screen. Neither of these emails involve the secretary or relate to the foundation's work. They are communications between her aides and the president's personal aide. And indeed, the recommendation was for one of the secretary's former staffers who was not employed by the foundation, end quote. You've seen that? Your reaction?
Well, I've seen it. Uma Abedin obviously is very close with Hillary Clinton. She's probably one of her top aides along with Cheryl Mills. She's her facilitator. So when you hear Mrs. Clinton say, gee, these professionals did the right thing in classifying information and I didn't know about it, these are her people. These are her cronies. It's part of the whole Clinton team. It's part of the whole Clinton corruption. And I might add that, you know, the Clintons, there's no crime that's beneath Hillary Clinton. Back in the late 90s when they had to turn over the administration to George W. Bush, Mrs. Clinton even tried to steal White House furniture. We uncovered it at Judicial Watch. She had to bring it back.
We have reported that on that before, but back to the present-day issue and final question. These were 44 emails that were not previously made public. Larry, how many more emails are there that will be made public?
Well, we're still seeking many at Freedom Watch that haven't been produced, and I suspect there are literally tens of thousands of emails that have not been produced. The FBI has to have them. If this agency does not have the sophistication to get them off her private server, frankly, Bill, we're in a lot of trouble when it comes to fighting terrorism and everything else.
Larry
May
Klayman,
explain some of the attacks that we've had.
Thank you for your time. I'm out of time today in Los Angeles.
You're welcome.
Thank you, sir. 21 past. Abby.
All right, thank you, Bill. All right, a young woman murdered and a killer on the loose. Now police probing connections to other similar incidents. That's coming up.
Also, the father of the Orlando nightclub terrorist sitting right behind Hillary Clinton at an event in Florida this week. Clinton was asked about it right after that event. How did she respond? We will show that for you. But first, Donald Trump on what he says is a clear double standard in America today.
And I saw the picture of him with a red hat, but it didn't have Make America Great on it, by the way. And she did not.
During his victory speech late last night, Ryan acknowledged the voters' frustration with Washington and push for change come November.
I am committed to doing everything I can to make sure that the status quo, which isn't good enough, is not continued. And let it be known that we can't afford another 4 years like the Obama years. And let's be very, very clear. That is exactly what Hillary Clinton and her party are offering.
This was Ryan's first election since he became House Speaker. First Congressional District, Southeast Wisconsin. He easily beat his challenger, Paul Nealon.
So police are searching for a killer after the body of a woman was found in the woods of Princeton, Massachusetts. 27-year-old Vanessa Marcotte was out jogging near her mother's home on Sunday when she was attacked, and her murder comes less than a week after 30-year-old Karina Vetrano was killed while running in Queens, New York. Police will not say whether they're looking for a connection between the two cases, and for that we have Mark Furman, who is a retired Los Angeles Police Department detective and a Fox News contributor. Sir, thanks for being with us this morning.
Thank you.
All right, so let's get right to this. You have the 30-year-old who was killed less than a week ago in Queens. Just on Sunday, this 27-year-old, as a detective, what is going through your mind in terms of what could have possibly happened here? Do you think there might be a connection? And who are they looking into? Is anyone on the table, including family?
Well, of course, you look at the closest people to the victim first to make sure that you can account for their whereabouts, anything that's going on in their personal life, their love life, their family life, their business life. And then you kind of circle away from that as you clear people and account for people. Now, when you have another case that is very similar, you need to either connect that up forensically or connect that up because both victims have a commonality, a common denominator, that they might have crossed paths and the suspect might have observed both victims actually at the same place, or there's a location where that suspect is actually picking up victims.
Is it possible that we have a potential serial killer on our hands? Because I've heard that from folks that have brought up the story saying, what if this is the case? How frightening would that be?
Well, a serial killer, you know, they're very clear in their MO, and sometimes they don't even realize what they leave for evidence that connects all these cases together. But in this case, the police are going to look at the cause and the method of death. And if they're the same, they're going to look at the forensics. If they can connect anything to one suspect, even a blood type and an MO, a cause of death, then they will go on that premise, as well as looking at the individual lives of each victim. It's a large geographic area for a suspect to be working.
Well, and Mark, we pulled up those two photos of the women that have been murdered, and you can't dispute how similar they look. The one there on the left was killed in Massachusetts, and on the right in Queens. You know, these young brunette women, my mom has been texting me for days now with updates on the story saying, don't go outside and run. There are a lot of nervous parents out there. I'm someone who loves to run outside. What advice do you have for folks that might be second-guessing going out and running during the summer?
Well, it's pretty simple. Just as your daughter goes out with friends, the buddy system, if you're going to go running with a friend. If you're going to go running as a young female, any place in the metropolitan area by yourself, I think you're putting yourself at a little risk. If there is a suspect there, you are the one they pick.
Yeah, and maybe take out your headphones while you're at it. Just an unsettling situation. Mark Furman, thanks for being with us this morning. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
About 9:29 now here in New York, developing now. Anti-terror police storming several homes, making arrests overseas. We'll tell you about the new search for ISIS supporters and where they are looking as of today.
Plus, Bill, a new firestorm over Donald Trump and his remarks about the Second Amendment. We're going to debate that fallout.
You know, Hillary wants to take your guns away. She wants to leave you unprotected in your home. This is a tremendous political movement.
Breaking news now. Police in Germany carrying out a series of raids against 3 suspected ISIS supporters who allegedly tried to recruit new members to that terror group. Greg Palcott watching that. Greg's live in London with more. And what do we know about the raids? Greg?
Bill, it was a big crackdown in Germany. Germany getting very serious about what they see as a growing terror threat there. Homes and offices in 5 different cities in northwestern Germany were raided by police, in part stemming from an earlier arrest of an asylum seeker said to be linked to a high-ranking ISIS figure, possibly planning an attack. There was another arrest today. Overall, police say they're going for the recruiters, the funders, the supporters of ISIS, as well as those willing to get their hands dirty. This comes after a spate of attacks last month in Germany, which saw at least 2 suspects tied to ISIS and saw over a dozen people killed. Germany in recent years has dodged literally the terror bullet. Now it's coming face to face with an ugly reality, Bill.
Yeah, and this is a whole new threat to that country. How is Germany dealing, be it the people or the government now, with this Islamist threat, Greg?
It's a huge issue, Bill. There is word that the German government tomorrow will introduce new sweeping anti-terror measures. There are big concerns, Bill, about the million refugees coming from Syria and elsewhere which were allowed to come into the country last year. There are concerns. There is some proof that some terrorists were mixed in with those. The number of refugees this year has been cut severely, but there's blowback. Along with toughening laws, extending police powers, there's word that authorities want to be able to deport rejected asylum seekers faster, not have them hang around and do terror acts. This to deal with a terror threat, but also, to deal publicly, Bill, because there is a growing feeling among the German people that the government is not protecting them, that security is a major issue. Back to you.
Greg Palcott, thank you. Developments on that soon to come. Thanks, Greg.
Come support Hillary, just a regular chain email or a personal invitation?
I'm a member, so as a member I get the invitation, so it's nothing particular about it. It's a Democratic Party, so everybody can join.
All right, so that man is Sadiq Mateen, the father of Orlando terrorist Omar Mateen, after showing up at the Hillary Clinton rally yesterday, sitting right behind the candidate. Well, the Clinton campaign says they were not aware that he was in attendance. He was not personally invited and disavowed his support. So watch what happened with the reporter when they asked Clinton about Mateen's appearance. Listen.
Secretary Clinton, should your campaign have known that Omar Mateen's father was at your campaign rally yesterday?
Thanks, folks. Appreciate it.
Secretary Clinton, do you have time for a question? Thank you all very much.
For more on this, let's bring in Ed Rollins, former campaign manager for Reagan and Bush 84 and chief strategist for Great America PAC, a Trump super PAC, and Dennis Kucinich, former Ohio congressman and a Fox News contributor. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Thanks for being here.
Morning.
All right, so the Clinton campaign, they have responded to this. I'm going to read this. They say this individual was not invited as a guest, and the campaign was not aware of his attendance until after the event ended. In addition to that, I'll add on the record that she disagrees with his views and disavows his support. Ed, I'll start with you here. You just think simply about logistics of a campaign event, especially when it comes to the Clinton campaign, a very calculated campaign, the people behind the candidate with cameras on them. Don't you know who all those people are?
Sure you do. And certainly the Secret Service has to know who they are because obviously they're very close to the candidate. And obviously, even if they go through a magnetometer, there's still always a risk. Obviously, this was a screw-up. I don't blame her. I don't blame him.
Right.
I blame some advanced man who basically, they set that scene. They basically should know who's behind them. You don't want controversy ever coming by the characters behind you. Sometimes it's cops, sometimes it's military, sometimes it's young people. But it's a stage set, and you need to know who those people are, and
Right.
obviously they didn't.
Dennis, if for nothing else, for safety reasons.
Well, I think what Ed Rollins just said is very important about who set the stage. There has to be some accountability there. But Hillary Clinton has been very clear in condemning the violence in Orlando and in offering sympathy to those who suffered such great loss.
Well, you think about this. I mean, she was in Florida, even mentioned the terror attack that happened in Orlando with the father sitting right there. I mean, it's enough to give you chills. Donald Trump was on Hannity last night, and he spoke about what he said was a double standard in media today when covering this. Take a listen.
If that were me, this would be a headline all over the world about Trump. But she did not, as I understand it, disavow this man. And he's got some pretty harsh views. So I think it's a whole double standard. But we're punching through it. And I think the people understand.
Ed, if this were reversed and it were a Trump rally, would we be talking about this all differently?
Sure you would. I mean, obviously she didn't escape unscathed in this. I mean, the story of her rally yesterday is all about this. We're now on the second day. Whatever she said is totally irrelevant. Trump has a point. Trump cannot make any mistakes whatsoever without them being highlighted because he's made a series of mistakes in the course of his campaign. In modern day campaigns, you need to be very scripted. You need to be very careful what you say. You have to have an understanding of the consequences are far beyond just the audience in front of you. And when you go and do big rallies, you need to make sure that they're set right.
Dennis, you've done this before. You have run for president. You understand the optics here. You understand how the media works. When you look at this current race, Donald Trump versus Hillary Clinton, and the media and how it's being handled, do you think there's a double standard going on?
I don't know if it's a double standard. There's two distinctly different candidates, though. One is heavily scripted, and as a matter of fact, is so scripted, does not want to meet with the media in a press conference for, I think, 8 months now. And the other candidate is totally unscripted, and with that comes circumstances such as the errant remark yesterday that has been interpreted by some as calling down violence on potential president. We have to be careful when we're running for office and when we're in the media about dealing in this orbit of violence. Have to be careful about what we say, and we must respect the nuances of what we say, right, so people aren't going to misinterpret it.
Yeah, I think that is well said. Dennis Kucinich, Ed Rollins, thanks for being with us this morning.
Thank you very much.
20 minutes now before the hour is Russian President Vladimir Putin now getting a little too cozy with one of our allies and what this might mean for an entire region. Should the U.S. be concerned? We'll talk to Ralph Peters about that in a moment.
Plus, Bill, it is not getting easier for Delta passengers as travelers encounter much more headaches around the world. Stick around for this.
We've been traveling for a long time, the four of us, and this is the first time. It's kind of sad. And it's my birthday. We'll keep our fingers crossed that we don't miss our flight and then miss our cruise ship.
showing up and showing on the phone. All right, now, big question about Russia today and Vladimir Putin. Putin met with the Turkish President Erdogan for the first time since Turkey shot down a Russian fighter jet near the Syrian border 9 months ago. It's also the first time since that attempted coup in Turkey. NATO has a key ally in Turkey. Turkey is a critical partner in the U.S. fight against ISIS. Retired Lieutenant Colonel Ralph Peters, Fox News strategic analyst with me now. And Colonel, good morning to you. There's a lot to analyze here. Keep it simple. What does this mean for the U.S.?
Well, this was a meeting of reconciliation between Erdogan and Putin. And while it was almost lost, and I thank you for bringing it up, almost lost in the white noise here about our election, it may prove to have been the most important meeting between two heads of state in this decade. Because if Turkey continues to move away from NATO, eventually separates from it, if Putin's reconciliation with Erdogan develops into an alliance, suddenly you have a geostrategic shift of the first magnitude. Think about it, Bill, geography is fate, and you would have a great wall of dictatorships from the Arctic Circle all the way south through Russia, across the Black Sea, through Turkey and Syria, to Israel's Golan Heights.
Wow.
And if Putin could then bring Turkey and Iran, who are currently at loggerheads, bring them together into a triumvirate of Turkey, Iran, and Russia, it would be, the magnitude of that shift would be incalculable, and we would be shut out of the Middle East. And by the way, we'd already be shut out of the Black Sea.
That'd be a whole new type of Eastern Wall. This would loom, or does loom, as a huge test for the United States. How do you see that when you're 3.5 months from an election?
Well, it certainly is vital. And a tragedy for our presidents from JFK forward has been, Republican or Democrat, they come to office with a very strong domestic agenda that they want to accomplish. And it's foreign policy concerns, largely ignored during the election cycles, that eat them alive, whether it's the Bay of Pigs or Vietnam or the oil shocks or the fall of the Shah, Khomeini takeover, Iran-Contra, the Balkans mess, obviously 9/11. It's always the foreign policy stuff that catches presidents unaware and just blindsides them and leads to diversion and tragedy. But again, we're not there yet. But Erdogan is increasingly anti-Western. Putin is certainly anti-Western. Iran is anti-Western. You can certainly see this rapprochement developing further between Putin and Erdogan.
It would seem that Erdogan's doing that for local consumptions too, local consumption, I should say. Okay. But you often make the point, Ralph, that we see things in terms of weeks or months. Right. And a lot of times the other side sees it in terms of years. Is that a case here?
It is indeed. I mean, we play checkers, they play chess. But certainly, they have long-term visions. And Erdogan's vision is parallel to Putin's. Putin dreams not of restoring the Soviet Union and its empire, but of restoring the Tsarist empire of circa 1900. Erdogan's dream is a new Ottoman empire. Now, traditionally, the Ottoman empires and Russian empires were mortal enemies, but the old conflict sources in the Balkans, for instance, are gone. And we might see something that just changes history in front of our eyes. So what I would say, Bill, back to your earlier question, well, there's a massive wall of dictatorships. I mean, we've made mistakes. We've overestimated the transplantability of democracy to societies that weren't ready or they're very different than ours. And this rise of imperial impulses, of new authoritarian regimes, indeed of budding dictatorships in Turkey and Russia and elsewhere, it's the gravest threat we've faced easily since the fall of the Soviet Union.
Just one last thing here. You said something interesting here. Even in the internet age, geography is still fate.
You betcha.
Define that.
Well, Turkey is traditionally a bridge and an invasion route between East and West. Russia traditionally was a barrier against invasions from the East. And if you suddenly have a totally new power center developing that's looks at both East and West as rivals, it changes the map. So look, even if you just look at a map of the Mediterranean, Eastern Mediterranean, the Black Sea, if there are treaties guaranteeing freedom of navigation up through the Dardanelles and Bosphorus, the Mediterranean into the Black Sea. There are big loopholes. In a time of crisis, our NATO allies, Bulgaria and Romania, will be shut out. They'd be landlocked, as would Ukraine. So geography, where you are, matters.
Understood. Keep an eye on that story. We certainly will. Turkey and Russia often reach back to their own history to try and redefine themselves today, and we'll see if this is the case now. Thank you, Colonel Ralph Peters, on that today in Washington.
Yeah, so interesting. All right, well, coming up, Hillary Clinton edging Donald Trump in a number of polls in key battleground states. So what is the electoral map looking like right now? We're going to ask political expert Larry Sabato.
Who wears the red, white, and blue better than this guy?
Nobody.
Michael Phelps has done it again, only he's added gold yet again to those colors.
He's unreal.
Who's going to stop him, right?
Nobody.
Come on.
To win gold this week. For more on this, we have Carly Shimkus, is a reporter for Fox News Headlines 24/7. Always good to have you here. Another good night. Phenomenal night. And it looks like that epic stare down that went viral yesterday really worked. First things first, Michael Phelps beat Chad Leclos, the man on the receiving end of that viral death stare. We should use that.
And I think we
could
get our way with that. I think you have a good point. He beat him in the 200-meter butterfly yesterday.
Which is like the hardest stroke
to do.
It's
unbelievably difficult. And, of course, all of these athletes make it look so easy, Michael Phelps in particular.
Right.
And then 70 minutes later, he's back in the water again for the 4x200-meter freestyle. Now, interestingly enough, his swimming cap actually ripped a few minutes before he entered the pool. So that didn't shake him, though. Yeah, the U.S. team dominated the entire race, and then Michael Phelps was the last to go in the water, so he brought that victory home for Team USA. And, you know, he is certainly celebrating today, as many people are. 21 gold medals, 25 overall.
I think it's his son, Boomer, that's good luck.
Oh, and
is he not the cutest thing?
Yeah, and he still has a few more races to go.
He does. Unbelievable. And Katie Ledecky as well.
Yes.
Had a good night.
So Team USA is really showing their dominance when it comes to swimming.
And gymnastics last night, they are doing so well, they even have a nickname, the Final Five.
Yes,
I love this.
Absolutely right. The Final Five, and they were dominant in every single event yesterday. And, I mean, they are really celebrating a huge margin of victory. Simone Biles and Allie Raceman in particular were really, really fantastic
They were huge expectations for both of them.
Yeah, and
they nailed it.
They handled that pressure. They took it in stride. And you did bring up their nickname. A lot of people are wondering why they call themselves the Final Five. The reason is twofold. One, because they're cutting down the number of gymnasts that can perform in teams in the 2020 Tokyo Games down to 4. So they will be the Final Five. Also, legendary coach Marta Caroli will be retiring very soon. So given that twofold explanation, Final Five sounds like a pretty appropriate
and I love Gabby, too. She's so
nickname.
Great.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
All
and
of them.
Tonight we were talking about the men's gymnastics, which we say, you know, and usually in sports, I kind of like watching men's sports, but in this case, I actually prefer women's gymnastics.
Right.
But still, they're great.
I mean, they are, every single Olympics, they end up becoming America's sweethearts. But the men's gymnastics all around is tonight. Also, the U.S. Basketball team is performing
no
tonight
LeBron, though, Carly.
No, but a lot of other star-studded, that's a star-studded lineup for sure.
Well, it's going to be another good night. Bill is so excited for this.
Oh,
I know.
As you should be.
The ladies, that was absolute domination.
Right?
By the way.
Phenomenal.
Unbelievable.
Thank you, ladies. WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange with some very interesting comments on the DNC email leaks. Is there a connection with the death of a staffer in Washington, D.C.? We'll tell you what he's saying about that. 3 debates slated for this fall. Donald Trump agrees to all of them, with some exceptions. We'll explain coming up top of the hour here.
This car is traveling over 200 miles per hour to win.
Oh, God! Oh, Jesus! Oh! Somebody's shooting! Somebody's shooting! Oh, my God!
It is clear multiple shots fired after a car struck a man standing in the road. The man appeared to be badly injured. He was taken to the hospital. Several bullets reportedly hitting the car. Nobody inside that vehicle was injured, and the driver said to be cooperating with police. It is certainly an alarming piece of video. A spokesman for the city says it appears the collision was not intentional. We will have more on that as we learned it inside America's newsroom. In the meantime, the founder of WikiLeaks adding new fuel to conspiracy theories surrounding the mysterious killing of a DNC staffer in Assange. Seth Rich was gunned down because he may have been a source of the 19,000 emails from the DNC, which led to the resignation of Chairwoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz. This adds a whole new layer to this, and we're going to report it the best we can based on what Assange has said. So, new hour here. I'm Bill Hemmer. Welcome back to America's Newsroom. Martha's got some time with the family.
She does, and I'm very happy to be here. Good morning to all of you. Happy Wednesday. I'm Abby Huntsman in for Martha McCallum. Yeah, this is quite the story. So WikiLeaks offering a $20,000 reward as police say it appears Seth Rich was killed during a botched robbery. But Julian Assange, he hints there is a lot more to this case. Listen.
Whistleblowers go to significant efforts to get us material and often very significant risks. As a 27-year-old works for the DNC, who was shot in the back, murdered just 2 weeks ago for unknown reasons as he was walking down the street in Washington. So
that was just a robbery, I believe, wasn't it?
No, there's no finding. So
what are you suggesting? What are you suggesting?
I'm suggesting that our sources take risks, and they become concerned to see things occurring like that.
But was he one of your sources then? I mean,
we don't comment on who our sources are.
In time, perhaps we know. In the meantime, here's Garrett Tenney live in Washington, D.C. And Garrett, what do we know at this point? Good morning.
Good morning, Bill. Initially, investigators did believe that the 27-year-old DNC staffer was killed in an attempted robbery. Now, a month later, they are not so sure what happened. What they do know is that early Sunday morning on July 11th, Seth Rich was walking home and only a few blocks away from his apartment when he was shot several times. When police found him, he had still had his wallet, his cell phone, all of his valuables were still there. Apparently, there were no witnesses, so investigators still don't have any suspects. But a few weeks later, when WikiLeaks published more than 19,000 emails from the DNC, that led to all sorts of conspiracy theories online connecting his murder and the leak. And Julian Assange's comments will likely only add fuel to many of those. However, this morning, the D.C. Metro Police Department sent us this statement saying, quote, "At this time, there is no indication that Seth Rich's death is connected to his employment at the DNC. However, we welcome information that could potentially lead to identification of the individual or individuals responsible for his death and are pleased when any outside contributors help us generate new leads." And Bill, they did tell us that includes both WikiLeaks and Julian Assange.
So more to come on this at some point. We don't know. What about reward money, Garrett? Any word on that?
Well, WikiLeaks has offered an additional $20,000. That's on top of $25,000 that the D.C. Metro Police already were offering. And, you know, besides that, WikiLeaks is not saying much about this case, particularly after those comments from Assange. Late yesterday, though, WikiLeaks did tell the Washington Times reportedly that it would not confirm if Seth Rich was a source for the email leak. And they said that the reward should not be taken to imply that the murder was somehow related to the group.
Garrett Tenney, thank you on that. In Washington, D.C., thank you, Garrett. Abby.
All right, thanks, Bill. So Donald Trump tentatively agrees to meet Hillary Clinton in 3 televised debates this fall, in spite of his criticism that 2 of them will go up against the NFL games. And he tells Fox News he wants to see the conditions of the debates. Well, the Clinton campaign says she is going to be there. Senior national correspondent John Roberts is live in Abington, Virginia, where Trump will speak later this afternoon. John, it sounds like we might get these 3 debates after all.
Yeah, it's looking that way, Abby. I think the final tale has yet to be told, but I was told yesterday that Donald Trump has agreed in principle to meet Hillary Clinton for the debates, and it's likely that he will do all 3 debates. But as you mentioned at the top of this, he wants to see the conditions associated with the debates, and some of those conditions include who the moderators will be of the 3 presidential debates. You know, at every rally, and he'll do it again today here in Abington, Virginia, Donald Trump laments to his group, and part of it is just to fire up his base as well, how unfair he thinks the press is toward him, how biased he believes they are, and he really wants to make sure that whoever moderates these debates will absolutely treat him fairly, because there are still some lingering issues from one of those debates back in 2012. The other thing is that there's going to be a negotiation here. There always is. Every 4 years with the Commission on Presidential Debates, Donald Trump's campaign has not yet had those conversations with the Commission. It's likely that they will have them in the next 2 or 3 days. And it looks like Hillary Clinton's campaign merely got way out in front of this whole process simply in an attempt to get out there and say, hey, we're all for these debates, and then put Donald Trump on the defensive, Abby.
Well, and then Donald Trump trying to get back on track, focusing on his economic message, but already today, John, on the defense over what he said yesterday.
Oh, yeah, and he's been on the defensive ever since his rally yesterday at the University of South Carolina in Wilmington, where he was, as he does at virtually every rally, talk about how he believes Hillary Clinton is going to be a danger to the Second Amendment, that if she becomes president, she'll have the opportunity to appoint Supreme Court justices. And Donald Trump warns at every event that those Supreme Court justices will be chosen from a field of people who would uphold laws to restrict firearms ownership in this country. A lot of people saw that as Donald Trump was sort of condoning the idea of gun owners going out there and taking matters into their own hands. He says, no, I was simply talking about the political power of Second Amendment supporters. Here's what he said yesterday in Wilmington, and then how he clarified that last night on the Hannity program. Watch.
Hillary wants to essentially abolish the Second Amendment. By the way, and if she gets to pick her judges, nothing you can do, folks. Although the Second Amendment people, maybe there is, I don't know.
Nobody in that room thought anything other than what you just said. This is a political movement. This is a strong, powerful movement, the Second Amendment. You know, Hillary wants to take your guns away. There can be no other interpretation.
You mentioned, Abby, that Donald Trump's going to try to hit home his economic message today. He's going to do that because this is a region that's got higher than the national average unemployment, 7.6% here on average. A lot of that's attributed to the collapse in the coal industry. Prior to his rally here in Abington, he will be meeting with executives of the coal industry, so we'll bring all of that to you throughout the day.
All right. John Roberts live for us in Virginia. John, thank you.
Let's bring in Chris Starr will now analyze a bit of this. Fox News digital politics editor. How you doing, sir? Good morning to you. Brother. I mean, a hearing is in the ear of the voter, right? I'm hearing liberals say, oh, man, he meant assassination. I'm hearing Republicans say, chill out. And you say?
I think the chillax side of this is probably the writer side. Did Donald Trump in any way intimate assassination of Hillary Clinton, which is what the press went all bonkers with for the first 4 hours of the story? He's calling for assassination. He clearly didn't do that. Did he suggest that there might be an armed insurrection in the United States if there were gun control measures put into place? Maybe. He may have done that. That's a possible. But either way, he didn't call for Hillary Clinton to be assassinated. He then went to clean it up. Shouldn't be a big deal. But, of course, it is a big deal when you're a Republican. You know why? Because the press is biased. That's just true. That's just the reality of life. When Mitt Romney talked about binders of women, he did not mean that he was pressing women into pages and keeping them on a shelf like Hannibal Lecter. That's not what he meant.
He had paperwork and resumes.
That's right. That's what he meant.
It was pretty obvious. So, as you say, what's with all the hubbub bubs? Giuliani kind of picked up on this point this morning. Watch.
The Clinton spin machine put it out immediately. Right. And they know the 10, 12 reporters to go to. The 10, 12 reporters were on top of the Trump campaign within a half hour with this interpretation.
And Donald Trump's, every newscast
Donald Trump's original reaction is, what? This is what I meant. I just gave you the explanation. I meant vote against her.
If you're Trump, you go back to your phrase dishonest media, which is what he loves to talk about.
Well, he loves to talk, and in his demonology of the people who he says are conspiring to hurt America, the press is right up there. He puts the press right in the same troika with Hillary Clinton and multinational corporations, and in addition to them, of course, illegal immigrants and Muslim immigrants. But the press is front and center for Donald Trump when he talks about what's wrong with the country. The question is, when will he start preparing for it? Not complaining about it, not raising money off of it, not rallying his base off of it, but at what point, if it is possible for him, will he start preparing for it and not giving them freebies? Because what they would be talking about, or in part have been talking about, would have been a very bad day for Hillary Clinton otherwise.
Debate calendar 36 days away. We're going to talk about that real soon. Halftime report. Sign up for it later, okay? Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, brother.
I'm watching my inbox. Thank you, sir. Abby.
Thanks, Bill. All right. Something new in the crystal ball for Donald Trump.
I won 14 million votes, more than ever gotten, almost 14 million, more than ever gotten in the history of the Republican primaries. And I know there are hard feelings, but, you know, you have to beat Hillary Clinton.
Well, some changes to the electoral map making Trump's path to 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue a bit tougher. Larry Sabato is going to break it all down.
Also, we have a fresh batch of Clinton emails that might shed more light on the connections between donations to the Clinton Foundation and the State Department and favors that were granted while Hillary Clinton was in charge. We'll go through all that in a moment here.
Never ending. And a training exercise turns deadly when shots are fired at a police academy.
Our entire police department and all of our city leaders are absolutely devastated for everyone involved in this unimaginable event. I am asking that if you pray for Mary's husband and family and for all of the officers and witnesses.
Between the Clinton Foundation and favors at the State Department when she was in charge. Now, these documents, they suggest public corruption released in a Freedom of Information lawsuit filed by Judicial Watch. I spoke to the group's founder last hour in America's Newsroom. He argues this fits a pattern for the Clintons for decades.
This is a modus operandi of Mrs. Clinton and Bill Clinton. Back in the early 80s, in the late 90s, I uncovered at Judicial Watch that they were selling campaign contributions for access to the administration. This is nothing new. This has been a pattern of practice.
David Goodfriend, former Deputy Staff Secretary of President Bill Clinton, the Hillary Clinton surrogate. How you doing, David? Welcome back here to America's Newsroom. How do you explain this?
Well, first, before we start, I want your audience to know how hard you work. You and I were at the Democratic Convention. I want everybody to know that Bill Hemmer was walking through the aisles making sure he was getting a scoop wherever he went. And, Bill, I salute you. You're a good reporter.
Kind of you to say, but we all work hard.
Now, let me get to...
Now,
okay.
what's up with this?
The subject of this is interesting, both for its timing and its substance. On the timing front, the conservative group, Judicial Watch, is trying to change the subject away from Donald Trump's thinly veiled death threats and attacking Gold Star mothers. He's had a bad couple weeks. So the timing is to try to change the subject. That's the sort of political undertow here. But the substance is also interesting to me because the individual who sent this email, Doug Band, somebody I know and worked with in the Clinton White House, was working for President Clinton, and a friend of the Clintons they'd known since before the Clinton Foundation was even started, who's of Lebanese descent, wanted to weigh in on something that was going on with Lebanon elections. He wanted to pass on information. So that happens in journalism. Hold on.
Just a little too close, right? I mean, you mentioned this email. Uma Abedin says this: we all have him on our radar. Personnel has been sending him options. But that's just one incident, David. New York Times, in one email exchange, executive of the Clinton Foundation sought to put a billionaire donor in touch with the United States ambassador in Lebanon because of the donor's interest there. And there's more on here now. These are
so that's the person I was just talking about.
I understand. These are 44 newly released emails.
Right.
How many more are out there, David?
Oh, there are tons and tons, and it will fail every time, just like it's failed on Benghazi. And yes, it's totally failed. And I'll tell you why, Bill. The polls speak for themselves. Donald Trump is in a death spiral. He's going down in the polls every day. And so you have WikiLeaks and you have Judicial Watch trying to change that trajectory by saying, we got a new email. The problem you have is there's never any there. The minute you peel that back, it's like, yeah, this is how it works in journalism. This is how it works in business. This is how it works in government. I have a source. I have somebody who wants to get in touch. How do I get that message through? I go to somebody who knows the person. I pass the information on. There's no there other than Donald Trump's big problems.
Listen, I appreciate the fact you're trying to deflect every question, but there was a lot of smoke here.
No, I'm answering your question.
No, but I expected that answer from you. What I don't know is how you're going to answer the next query. This is from Hillary Clinton trying to explain how the father of the Orlando terrorist showed up at a rally in Kissimmee, Florida this week. Just watch here.
Secretary Clinton, should your campaign have known that Omar Mateen's father was at your campaign rally yesterday?
Thanks, folks. Appreciate it.
Secretary Clinton, do you have time for a question? Thank you all very much.
You know, being at these rallies for years, that the people who sit behind the candidate are most often, if not always, selected. How did he get there, David, and why?
Well, I have to tell you, in this respect, I wish that we Democrats were a little bit more like the Trump campaign or these other campaigns where every single individual has to pass some sort of background check before being invited in. I wish we were more like that. We're not. This was an open rally. And I don't like this guy's father being able to get in there any more than you do. But it was an open rally. He went through a security magnometer, I imagine. He passed the test and then probably wormed his way in behind the dais. You can't say in the same breath therefore there's some sort of endorsement of this shooting. That would be craziness. That would be insanity.
I did not say that. But
I'm glad.
there were obvious reporters at that rally who recognized him immediately, and you wonder why others did not as well.
You do wonder, and I wish we would do this kind of like police state background check that the Trump campaign does every time they hold a rally. They make sure that people who go in the door are supporters.
Last question.
I wish we did that.
She did not answer that question. In fact, she has not had a press conference in more than 8 months. Does that bother you?
No, we got debates coming up. And if Donald Trump is man enough to face Hillary at the debates, we'll get all the questions you want, and we'll see how each of them handles it. So I hope he doesn't chicken out. I hope Donald Trump does not chicken out and fail to show up
at last
on game
check,
day.
he's going to be there. But why not face just reporters who are on the beat every day?
I think the debates are the place to do it. Look, I don't run the campaign, Bill. I mean, she's had interviews. She's done interviews on the press. She's certainly made herself accessible to Fox News and other outlets. I just think in this case, the next big event in this campaign is a debate, mano a mano, between Trump and Clinton, and the reporters are asking all the questions, and we see how each candidate's going to respond. If Donald Trump is man enough to show up on game day.
If you get your request, then it'll be 10 months since there was a full-blown press conference, David. Thanks for coming in today.
All right,
Hope you come
Bill.
back, David. Good friend, thank you. Out of Washington today. I look forward to that.
You bet.
Abby.
Ooh, that'll wake you up. Great combo. All right. Donald Trump lighting up the internet with his suggestion that the Second Amendment supporters do something about Hillary Clinton. Well, Trump supporter Florida Governor Rick Scott, he is going to join us with his take.
Also, an arsonist caught on camera while his plan backfires, quite literally. Civilian during a role-playing exercise happened at a Citizens Police Academy. This was near Fort Myers. They were acting out a scenario where the 73-year-old woman was playing a victim. The officer is supposed to fire a blank round at her. Police chief says a live round hit Mary Knowlton by mistake and killed her. The Department of Law in Florida, enforcement investigating that, and the officer who fired that loaded gun right now said to be on leave.
Well, Donald Trump clarified his remarks about the Second Amendment people doing something about Hillary Clinton. The comment left a firestorm of criticism. Trump says he was not calling for violence, and he blames the media for the uproar. Well, I'm joined now by Florida's Republican governor and Donald Trump supporter Rick Scott. Good morning to you, Governor. Thanks for being here.
Good morning, Abby. I got to watch you this morning while I worked out.
Wow, that's early, 5 a.m. Nice work.
Absolutely. I get up early.
I love that. All right, I want to start with this, with the Second Amendment comment. I mean, some people are saying that he was suggesting that if you believe in the Second Amendment, that you should take this into your own hands if you're not getting what you want. When you first heard those comments, what went through your mind?
Well, I didn't hear him until I heard Donald Trump clarify what he meant. I mean, the Second Amendment, we have a lot of Second Amendment supporters all around the country. We've got a lot in Florida, and the Second Amendment is very important to them. Now, I still believe, the election is going to be about jobs. As you know, I'm the chair of the Super PAC Rebuilding America Now, and we have our latest ad up talking about how the Clintons came out of the White House, said they were broke, start a foundation, now they're worth $100 million. It sure doesn't pass the smell test.
I do have to ask this, though. I mean, some folks are saying whatever he meant to say there, it is dangerous language. Do you think that's considered dangerous?
Well, look, every candidate's a little bit different. What they talk about, when I ran, I talked about jobs. I still think is the biggest issue, but he clarified what he said. So I mean, he's let people know what he says, and I know I'm supporting him because it's about jobs.
All right, well, there is a lot going on this week, as you know. A rally in Florida on Monday for Hillary Clinton. Omar Mateen's father was seen sitting behind her. She was asked about it yesterday. She refused to comment. What do you think was going on here? Are you surprised I didn't know about that?
Well, Abby, I talked to most of the victims' families, and I visited many of the victims in the hospital, and I can't imagine what they're thinking right now, how the shooter's father can be standing next to a presidential candidate for the next president of the United States. So my heart goes out to those families. I can't imagine why Hillary wouldn't immediately just get up this morning and apologize to them.
Well, and I want to get your take while we have you on the Zika virus, because now, 17 cases in Miami alone. We had a segment on yesterday. We talked to Elizabeth Harrington. She told us about the NIH and sort of what they're asking for, what we need to do. Let's play that.
We need money for these outbreaks. The same thing happened with the Ebola outbreak, and the NIH was complaining they didn't have enough money. I mean, but you see time and time again, when you have $1 billion budget, you're going to have millions of dollars wasted. They don't get shut off. They don't get looked at. They don't get examined.
Right.
That maybe this money should go to other worthy causes like fighting Zika.
And what we didn't play there, Governor, this $50 million or more going to programs like helping truck drivers get in shape, a study on the freshman 15. The list goes on and on. Are you surprised we don't have the funds right now to pay for something as serious as the Zika virus?
You know, I'm very disappointed in the federal government. They've not been a partner. We have a small area, less than 1 square mile radius, where we believe there's likely transfers. We have reduced that area as of last Friday. We're hoping to reduce it more. But the federal government has not been a partner. At the state, I've allocated state resources, $26.2 million. We'll allocate more if we need to. We're going to make sure everybody that's pregnant in our state, if you want to be assessed, if you want a test, you can go to our health departments and do it. But the federal government has not been a good partner.
Yeah, such a frightening disease. Governor Rick Scott, thanks for being with us. And thanks for waking up so early to watch us.
You do a great job in the morning, along with Heather.
Nice. Right on to that. Thank you, Governor. We are 3 months before the general election, and states that were once considered a sure thing for Trump and Clinton appear to be not so much today. A brand new map that we're looking at today, and we will show that to you in minutes.
Plus, it's space travel like you've never seen before. New ultra-detailed video providing an up-close look at the moment of liftoff. More police department and news conference on the federal investigation is set to begin at any moment. The feds launched the investigation following the death of Freddie Gray while in police custody. Well, the report concludes Baltimore officers routinely discriminate against blacks, use excessive force, and are not adequately disciplined for misconduct. Some of the 6 officers accused in Gray's death stood trial before all of them were cleared of any wrongdoing last month. We will, of course, monitor that news conference and bring you any developments as they come in.
Meantime, starting to look a lot like a new map out there for Donald Trump, and it's shifting in Hillary Clinton's favor as of this week. Our own Fox News decision team adjusting the Electoral College ratings, moving a state that leans Democratic to likely Democratic. Here to explain, Dr. Larry Sabato, Director of the Center for Politics, University of Virginia. How you doing, Doc? And good morning to you. Nice to see you down in Philly, and now we are reunited. Okay, here's what we did. Yesterday, we moved New Hampshire, Pennsylvania, and Virginia from a toss-up state to lean Democratic. Do you, sir, Mr. Crystal Ball, agree with that?
Yes, we've actually had them there since March 31st. So I absolutely agree with those decisions. And look, you represent a network. You have to be more careful than a little website like the Crystal Ball. But I agree with all 3 decisions. I think very clearly both the demographics and the polling results support the 3 decisions that your team made.
Okay, now we'll let that go where it is. New Hampshire, she's up 7 apparently. Pennsylvania 8, Virginia 7 as well. Arizona and Georgia have moved as well from lean Republican to toss-up. Now, I think Georgia's gone Republican twice. Sorry, Democratic twice, maybe over the last 50 years. Take the Peach State first. What appears to be changing if this is true?
Georgia, Bill, is undergoing many of the same transformations that affected Virginia and are affecting North Carolina. And I think you're going to see over time more Democratic voting at the presidential level as the Hispanic population increases and is registered to vote and shows up to vote, and with the increasing concentration around a metropolis like Atlanta. Those suburban, college-educated, graduate-educated voters are more inclined for a combination of reasons to vote Democratic than to vote Republican.
Okay, now Arizona, I think about John McCain. Arizona or not?
Let's remember, in a 3-way race, Bill Clinton carried Arizona in one of his races, so it's not unheard of that a Democrat would win there. But again, a much larger Hispanic vote, and it's interesting to see that population change, both attracting younger people in Arizona and and many more senior citizens, retired individuals who want to spend their golden years in that beautiful state. And again, combination of issues and demographics are producing a change in the vote. And I think it's also fair to say that some of what Donald Trump has said about immigrants have energized the Hispanic vote there.
Did you see the Bloomberg poll this morning? It came out, I think it was released this morning. They have the national race now at 6 points. Sound about right?
About right. If you take the polling average, it's between 7 and 8 points for Clinton. Look, Bill, you're going to have some receding of the double bounce that Hillary Clinton got. Half the bounce from her convention, the other half from a series of mistakes and gaffes that Trump made right after his convention. Some of that recedes, all right? And when we'll get to Labor Day, we'll see the real point spread. But I think it's pretty obvious Clinton is still going to be ahead on Labor Day, just not by quite as much.
Give me a sense then, based on how you look at historical presidential elections, when you are 3 months away, how often do they have these seismic shifts? What would you point to?
Well, it's rare, but it does happen. People keep saying, I keep hearing 1988 Bush versus Dukakis. That actually isn't true. Bush led from the convention, his convention in August onwards. So I've got to be honest with you, it doesn't happen very often. But the question that I pose to people this year is, what has gone according to the historical plan? Not much. So we always keep our eyes open, our ears open, and our minds open to new things.
What's gone according to plan? Fill in the blank. Thank you, Doc. Larry Sabato with the Crystal Ball in Virginia.
Thank you, Bill.
Talk to you real soon. Thank you.
All right, it's not just the presidential race. Plenty of Senate races to watch this fall, including one in the battleground state of New Hampshire. After trailing for months, Democratic Governor Maggie Hassan has closed the gap against incumbent Republican Kelly Ayotte. Well, the latest RCP average shows him in a dead heat right now in a race that could have major implications for November. Well, senior correspondent Rick Leventhal is in beautiful Manchester, New Hampshire this morning. Rick, good to see you.
Good to see you too, Abby. You know, you have two high-profile women here who are very familiar to voters. They've been in the public eye for years, and as you just heard, New Hampshire typically leans Democrat in presidential years, so the governor gets a boost from that. But the senator is the incumbent, so she gets a similar bounce. And while Hassan is embracing Hillary Clinton, Ayotte is trying to keep her distance from Donald Trump.
I support Hillary Clinton because she and I have been working for the same thing, expanding middle-class opportunity, helping our small businesses, keeping our country safe.
I've said clearly I'm going to be voting for him. I'm not endorsing him. I have disagreements with him, which I've been quite vocal about, and I'll continue to do that.
It's a difficult dance for the senator after Trump endorsed her last week, Abby.
All right, Rick Leventhal live for us in Manchester. Rick, thank you.
This is the mayor of Baltimore now reacting to the Department of Justice findings in their investigation of the Baltimore Police Department.
Pressing challenges. The report identifies specific problems in the department, but the transparency of the report offers a crucial foundation if we are going to move forward. Because I believe transparency is the only true foundation upon which we can rebuild community trust. Policing issues have taken on a new urgency in the national discussion in light of the tragic shootings in recent weeks, as well as the developments in our own city. It's so very important that we get this right. The report's assessment and its follow-up to it will help us to heal the relationship between the police and our communities. I also want to be clear that we have not been standing still while this inquiry was underway. Indeed, some of these reforms began before I asked the Department of Justice to investigate the department. The city has taken first steps in a long path to reform, and we've begun to see real benefits. Our police department is already making significant changes. The community is providing valuable insights, and officers and citizens are working together to improve our communities and the policing that is happening within them. We have a very long journey ahead of us, and I'm grateful that we could begin this process of meaningful change while I'm mayor. I'd like to turn it over now to Principal Deputy Assistant Attorney General Vanita Gupta. Ms. Gupta.
Good morning. I'd like to start by thanking Mayor Stephanie Rawlings Blake and Commissioner Kevin Davis for their cooperation and for their leadership throughout the Justice Department's investigation. I also want to thank my outstanding team from the Civil Rights Division for their tireless and focused efforts. 15 months ago, in the aftermath of Freddie Gray's tragic death, we talked to community members, police officers, police union leaders, and city officials about the challenges related to policing in the city of Baltimore. The mayor, members of the city council, members of Congress, and residents asked us to open a pattern or practice investigation into the Baltimore Police Department, which we launched last May of 2015. Since then, we talked to residents in every corner of Baltimore, from Roland Park to Sandtown. We interviewed command staff and rank and file officers. We participated in ride-alongs in each police district. We met with leaders of police unions, religious organizations, advocacy groups, neighborhood associations, and reviewed their reports and publications. With law enforcement and statistical experts, we reviewed thousands of pages of documents covering 2010 to 2016, including policies and training materials, internal affairs data on stop searches and arrests, and use of force reports.
So this is now the findings, Department of Justice, federal investigation now, that found a pattern of unconstitutional conduct, racial disparities in the number of stops and arrests on behalf of Baltimore police, unconstitutional searches, stops, arrests, and excessive force. That is what the federal government has now found. This after all the officers that have gone up for trial, not one conviction has been found as a result of the case as it relates directly to the Freddie Gray matter. So the Department of Justice in Washington now weighing in with its findings and conclusions along with the mayor there in the city of Baltimore. In a moment here, back to this new debate over Donald Trump and comments about the Second Amendment. Were they taken out of context? We'll play them for you and we'll debate it fair and balanced in a moment.
There can be no other interpretation. Even reporters have told me, I mean, give me a break. But they're dishonest people.
By Supreme Court justices, so the very premise of what he's saying is totally wrong.
So the Hillary campaign is speaking out about this, as you can imagine, Blake, and the campaign manager said this is saying is the President of the United States should not suggest violence in any way, regardless of what he was trying to say here or how you interpret it. Is it dangerous language?
Look, Donald Trump is known for his bombastic language, and the question is he able to sustain that and move ahead in the polls? And the answer is no, he's not. He certainly didn't mean a call to violence. That is certain. The fact, though, that it is open for interpretation is the problem. And, Alan, with regard to the Second Amendment, there's a lot a president can do. We've seen it from this president, picking up his pen and his phone and using executive orders and regulations to curtail people's Second Amendment rights.
He never did anything of the kind. Tell me exactly how has this president curtailed anybody's Second Amendment rights? How has he done that, Brad?
Look,
explain how he's done that.
I will explain it. In his rhetoric and his actions.
Rhetoric. No, look, it's not. No actions have done that. That's not happened.
He has advanced. Yes, he has.
It's not happened. Explain.
It has happened.
How?
And go.
All right, Brad, go ahead. Brad, go ahead.
He
hasn't curtailed Second Amendment rights.
And look at his rhetoric. Look what he said about how he wants to amend gun control laws, advanced gun control laws.
It hasn't happened.
No, because thank God he hasn't done it.
Because he can't. A president can't do it by himself.
We have a House of the Senate who's preventing him, and we have a court who's preventing him.
But you just claimed that he took away people's gun rights. He hasn't done anything of the kind.
All right. Well, guys, you know what? I think this highlights exactly the problem. We're not even talking about any policy with Trump or Hillary Clinton. We're talking about another controversy. We're going to have to leave it there, unfortunately. But thank you both, Brad Blakeman, Alan Combs. Always good to see you. Have a good day.
We can decide on this, though. The most spectacular view of the entire day. And it's all right here. Next.
The following memories are brought to you by Prevagen. Your memories make you who you are, and now your ability to recall short-term details could actually improve with age. The breakthrough in Prevagen helps your brain, allowing you to stay as sharp as possible. Because you've got a lot of great memories to make. Powered by an ingredient originally discovered in jellyfish, Prevagen is clinically shown to improve short-term memory. Prevagen, the name to remember.
Everyone has got a dream. You know what I mean?
Hey, is this our turn? Honey, our turn?
Yeah, we go left right here.
Great adventures are still out there. We'll find them in our Subaru Outback.
Love, it's what makes a Subaru a Subaru.
Get 0% on select Subaru models during the Subaru A Lot to Love event, now through August 31st.
A deported immigrant back and charged with a horrific crime against a child. We take you inside the harrowing case. Pat Toomey shares shocking insight on The Factor.
For mouth-watering recipes made with the freshest seafood, come to Lobster Shack in Seaford. Open 7 days a week for lunch and dinner, Lobster Shack serves up everyday-style food prepared with the finest ingredients. If you're craving shellfish, you'll find oysters, clams, mussels, and colossal shrimp, as well as the best prime cuts for meat lovers. Clam Bake Tuesdays, just $38.95 per person for a 3-course dinner. For the freshest tail in town, visit Lobster Shack, 3915 Merrick Road, Seaford. LobsterShackLongIsland.com.
It's our biggest offer ever. Get free shoes at Caraco. Buy one suit, get 15 items free. Slim fit or traditional cuts, the brand names you know and love. And now, when you buy a single suit, Caraco gives you 2 additional suits, plus 3 shirts, 3 ties, 3 belts, 3 pairs of socks, and for the first time ever, a pair of dress shoes, absolutely free. Now, we've got you covered from head to toe. Buy one suit, get 15 items free. Now at Caraco Suits.
Why pay more? Pay less. Carpet Depot's summer sale is going on now. Choose 3 rooms of level loop carpet for $3.99 or 3 rooms of plush carpet for $5.99. It's your choice. Plus, free measuring, free padding, free installation, free shop at home service. We'll even laminate any room, just $6.99. Call now, 516-731-1324.
That's 516-731-1324. Visit our 5 showrooms or carpetdepotinc.com.
If you or a loved one have suffered complications from a hip replacement, call Salino & Barnes now.
Thousands of defective metal-on-metal hip implants have been recalled, resulting in major lawsuits being filed against the manufacturers.
Don't wait. Call 8.
Complications may include implant failure, dislocation, pain, difficulty walking, or additional surgery. Don't wait. You may be entitled to compensation.
Please call Salino & Barnes today.
Don't wait. Call 8.
As Donald Trump was talking about the economy the other day in his long-awaited tax plan, my next guest observed something very different in the media. Howard Kurtz, Fox News media analyst and host of Media Buzz, with me now. And how are you, Howard? Good morning.
Good morning to you, Bill.
What did you notice?
Well, there was some serious and substantive coverage of Trump's economic speech in Detroit, but by the next morning, it was getting crowded out, overshadowed, drowned out by another very legitimate storyline that just collided, and that was 50 former Republican national security officials signing a letter saying Donald Trump's not fit to be president. Senator Susan Collins coming out and saying she won't vote for Donald Trump. And as the day went on, that became the story, and the economic speech kind of got buried.
Does that mean they're more interested in personality and not policy? Because this is important stuff here. It's probably issue number 1 in the election.
It's the most important issue, and yet journalists are not dying to delve into the intricate details of how many income tax rates there are and what deductions there are. But if you have part of the Republican Party revolting against Donald Trump, that's not only a sexier story, but it also appeals to those who are not, let's just say, enamored of Trump's candidacy. And now, with the story about Trump's remarks about Hillary Clinton and Second Amendment people, I predict that's going to go on for days. That is going to completely obliterate, in my view, anything else that he says.
You wrote about this, right? And you singled out a few headlines in the New York Times. Here they are. Key Republican senator says she will not vote for Trump. GOP donors in primaries are turning to Clinton. Mormons' distaste for Trump puts Utah up for grabs. Now, it's not a normal year. And when you have members of a political party saying they will not endorse their nominee, well, it's kind of news. But what do you find from these headlines?
It's absolutely news, and I'm not arguing otherwise. But what I'm saying is there is just a piling on effect where those kinds of headlines then take precedence over, talking about jobs and the economy. And what they also take precedence over, Bill, is controversies involving Hillary Clinton, these latest emails. I know you led the program with it this morning. Other things where if it were not for Trump being a news-making machine and also sometimes stepping in it, there'd be a lot more focus on the Democratic nominee. That has led to some imbalance in the
It's always interesting. Thanks for coming in, Howie. Howard Kurtz there in Washington, D.C. See you on Sunday for Media Buzz. Thanks, Abby.
Thanks, Bill. Happening right now. Raids in Europe as cops try to take down ISIS supporters. The latest on that manhunt, that is next.
Before cool. This is a loot. Falcon landings in
Really?
The other, from